In this edition of Southern Newsweek, Council accepts the blame for Cycleway errors that'll cost hundreds of thousands to fix. Thousands call for an end to quarrying on Saddle Hill, and the woman behind the move is positive the DCC will listen. And we take a look at the link between a local academic and a revelation about the Ross ice shelf. Kia ora, I'm Holly Buchanan. As the City Council welcomes government funding for cycleway development, it's throwing more money into a botched network. The South Dunedin Cycleway is riddled with errors which the Council's owning up to, and it'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars fixing its mistakes.
South Dunedin Cycleway was supposed to be the City Council's model development, showing residents how effective the planned citywide cycle network will be. But mistakes by council staff mean the flagship route is faulty, and Ruth Stokes is in charge of fixing it.
We've had far too many chefs in the kitchen, if you like, and no one knowing which chef actually had the ability to make the decisions, so there was a lot of confusion over who had the responsibility. So that's what we're changing.
There was about $6 million in the South Dunedin Cycleway budget. The New Zealand Transport Agency contributed just over half. About $4 million's been spent, and remedial work will further deplete funds.
So at the moment the only estimates I have are for the fixes that are required at Portobello Road, and that's around about $320,000. But we're just working through at the moment what it is that we do want to be delivering. So any changes to existing islands, etc.
The council's just received millions more from the government to expand the cycleway network throughout the city. It'll link north and south CBD to harbour, and civic staff are determined not to make the same mistakes twice.
So really it's about taking a breath at the moment, looking at making sure that the routes we've got are right, the ones that are being worked on at the moment, and on ensuring that we are designing and building quality environments that people are proud to live in and proud to use.
Stokes says the South Dunedin network should be fixed by Christmas, a timely deadline for an expected uptake in cycling over summer. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
The Council has paid out $46,000 from its flood relief fund to affected residents not otherwise eligible for assistance. There's $133,000 in the fund. To date, 48 people have received varying amounts. About 10 applicants were denied funding as they couldn't prove hardship or were otherwise covered by insurance. The Council will give up to $5,000 per person, although no one's received the maximum to date. Money's available for packing and moving household items and up to a week's temporary accommodation. Other associated costs, such as taxi fares from the day of the flooding, are also covered. A petition of more than 3,000 signatures has been delivered to the Dunedin City Council. It calls for action over the future quarrying of Saddle Hill, and the local MP behind it is hopeful of a positive outcome.
Dunedin South MP Claire Curran walks into the Civic Centre armed with her Saddle Hill petition signed by just over 3,500 people.
So one of the mechanisms was to ask the City Council to please ask the Environment Court to stop the quarrying, and that's essentially what the petition does. It also asks the Council to work alongside the community to look for a long-term solution to the ownership of Saddle Hill.
She started the petition at the end of last year, and it spread from a social media campaign to one that's dominated local shop fronts and business counters.
And there's been a really good response online and also people signing the petitions, and today we gave them to the City Council.
The council's already asked the Environment Court to further consider the quarrying taking place at Saddle Hill and future quarrying guidelines. That's something Curran's grateful for.
We are very thankful to the Council for referring the issue back to the Environment Court. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, but handing these petitions over today does show the Council just how much community concern there is out there.
All interested parties are eager for the court's ruling, although it's not known exactly when that will be. But Curran remains optimistic.
And what we're hoping is that they'll say, well, we don't think any more quarrying should occur. I think that's what the community wants.
the council's not in a position to take any further action at present, with everything still very firmly in the court's hands. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
The city's first female intermediate school principal is now on the job. She started at Dunedin North Intermediate with pupils and staff holding an official welcome, and she's already eyeing up some major challenges.
Intermediate's new principal says hello to her new pupils. It's an exciting career move for this local woman, and one that comes with historic significance. Heidi Hayward is officially Dunedin's first ever female intermediate school principal.
It's a curious little statistic that there hasn't been a female until now. I mean, I don't think that there's anything significant about being female particularly. Leadership's leadership. You're either good at it or you're not. But yeah, I'm excited to be the first. It's nice.
Hayward says principal positions like hers don't come up often, as there's only 3 intermediate schools in the city. She says the mihi whakatau has been a nice touch, and although it's a welcome, it's also given her former Waitati school pupils a chance to say goodbye. Now Hayward's focusing on getting to know everyone at D&I, while making the school as fun as possible for staff.
You know, we spend a lot of time at work, and I like to think that I can create an environment in which people want to come, enjoy their work.
Hayward's expecting big challenges during her tenure. She's heard noise from the government questioning the need for intermediate schools, and she hopes schools like this one are here to stay.
But I think that probably the biggest challenge in intermediate is the limited age range. You're asking children who are year 8 to be a leader of somebody who's often the same age as them.
While the new term's just begun, Hayward's already been working with staff on a school plan, settling in as she takes the reins of one of the few local intermediates. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
A local academic is leading an international research project about Antarctic ice. The study comprises unique data on the Ross Ice Shelf and its condition over a century, and it comes with a reassuring revelation.
Analysing ice from Antarctica, Associate Professor Pat Langhorne is the lead researcher on arguably the most comprehensive study of the Ross Ice Shelf. She's made about 24 trips to the frozen continent and plans to return in a few months, continuing years of discovery.
We started probably about the late 1990s. We started looking at this in earnest, started with a PhD student's project, and she's still working on these things.
From the University of Otago's physics department, Langhorne coordinates the work of researchers around the world, and they've discovered the melting and refreezing of the Ross Ice Shelf is a normal pattern that's occurred for at least a century, somewhat reassuring in the context of modern climate change concerns.
This ice shelf is not yet in the dire sort of circumstances that some of the other ice shelves have had happen to them. So, some of them have collapsed completely.
She says with this new understanding of the ice shelf's condition comes responsibility to monitor its state into the future.
We need to be very vigilant. We need to be watching out for things changing.
And there are plans to use the latest technology to get the most detailed measurements possible of the ice, breaking new ground in a predominantly inaccessible landscape.
A German group and our group have both been doing work on making measurements of this type of ice from aircraft, actually from helicopter, by flying a gadget that can detect the presence of this loose ice that comes up under the ice shelf.
Further drawing the world's attention down under. Rosie Mannins, 39, Dunedin News.
Coming up on Southern Newsweek, a Mosgiel mum vents her frustration as able-bodied residents use disability car parks. And the dark side of the internet, we look at an exhibition highlighting the criminal element online. A Mosgiel mother's furious about ongoing problems with mobility parking. She's angry at able-bodied motorists who illegally use parks for people like her wheelchair-bound daughter. And she says it's those inconsiderate residents who make difficult living even harder.
Mosgiel mother Janine Bolton is naming and shaming locals for poor parking etiquette. She's put photos up online showing people using mobility car parks without permission, and says it's an ongoing issue, making life much harder for disabled locals.
Something that can take your average person not even 5 minutes can be a half-hour excursion for some people. That is then made much more difficult if anybody else is parked in those mobility parks who shouldn't be there.
Bolton says the rules around disabled car parks are simple. People can only use them if they have a mobility card displayed in their windscreen. She says they're easy to get and ensure the parks are being used by people who actually need them.
It's not a privilege. It's really about equality. I can guarantee you anybody who gets a mobility card would much rather hand somebody that mobility card and their disability and just go and park in a normal car park.
She says these parking spots mean disabled locals can properly get around the area. The extra width by the parks is crucial for getting in and out of vehicles too. Bolton's heard many excuses for using the parking spaces without permission, with only temporarily needing it a common one.
To believe that that your need is more than somebody else's who has gone through the process, who has applied for the card, who has paid their money and who is displaying it correctly, it's pure arrogance.
Bolton says mobility parking makes life much easier for people like her with disabled kids. So she's hoping locals who needlessly take mobility parks will wake up to the impact they're having and park slightly further away from where they're going to make someone else's life much easier. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
A large bequest could significantly boost resources at the Otago SPCA. Southern Newsweek understands $250,000 has been bequested to the organisation, but the chief executive says she hasn't received formal notification of the donation. She says it often takes months for bequests to be allocated through the legal system. If donated, the $250,000 will be one of the Otago SPCA's largest single contributions. In recent years, only one bequest has topped that amount. Local marijuana advocates are shining a light on the darkest reaches of the internet. They're behind an exhibition on what's referred to as the Darknet, often used for illegal activity. And it's surprising some members of the public.
The internet has a dark side, and it's the topic of the local Cannabis Museum's newest exhibition. It explores the rise of the Darknet and how hidden websites are being used to perform all manner of illegal activity.
Now, in the 21st century, this era of Web 2.0, you can essentially order your cannabis online.
Gray says the Darknet is quite popular in Dunedin, with people using the hidden internet for a variety of reasons. It's accessed with unique web browsers, some of which have been developed with military applications in mind. He says the highlight for many people is the computer hooked up to the Darknet, where people can explore the hidden internet themselves.
Of course, we wouldn't condone anyone using it for illegal activity. It's just there for informational purposes, and people can see for themselves from start to finish what these technologies are that have enabled this phenomenon and how it all works.
Gray is pleased with the response to the exhibition and feels it's the museum's best one to date, with a lot of work having gone into preparing it. He says it's serving as a great learning opportunity for locals.
The interesting thing about the Darknet is, it has these shadowy connotations, but it's actually average people who use it, and a lot of people who wouldn't be comfortable interfacing with the criminal market in real life.
Gray says the Cannabis Museum's worked tirelessly to put the exhibition together, and he's hoping it'll leave locals with an insight into what is and what isn't possible with modern technology. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
Victory in a national dancing competition is a dream come true for one Dunedin woman. She's won a major title at the Highland and National Dancing Championships in Ashburton, and now she's giving locals an insight into the blood, sweat and tears needed to reach the top.
Meet Chantel Shatford, one of the country's best Highland dancers. She's been named the 18 and over Champion of Champions in a national dancing contest, and says getting to this point has been a lifelong dream.
Just to be able to show everyone in the audience how much I love dancing, and then to get some good results on top of that as well was just amazing.
While she's won major titles across the country before, it's her first time as Champion of Champions. She's proud of the feat, a highlight of a dancing career spanning almost her entire life. Shatford says she started as a 4-year-old, following in her mother's dance steps.
And it was something that just came quite naturally to me, and I just loved watching the older girls and listening to the bagpipes and dressing up all pretty, if this is what you can call this. But yeah, and I've met so many amazing people through it. My best friends are Highland dancers, and it's taken me all over New Zealand.
She's even performed in China and the United States, and says it takes a lot of blood, sweat and tears to get to that level, the culmination of lifelong dedication, adding to how special her latest victory is.
A title like this is the accumulation of years and years of hard work, hours in front of the mirror. There's nights that you can't go out with your friends because you've got to dance.
Shatford's brought back 9 trophies from the contest and is proud of every single one. Now she's focused on upcoming university exams, but her lasting smile is evidence of her crowning achievement. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
And just ahead on Southern Newsweek, wet weather wasn't enough to deter young athletes who used the school holidays to put in the hard yards on the green. And we'll take a look at some of the events that capped off the Chocolate Carnival. Welcome back. Dozens of young golfers used the end of their school holidays to put in some time on the green. They braved the wet weather to participate in a junior tournament at St Clair, and it's helping the fledgling athletes take their game to the next level.
Teeing off on damper green than usual, 25 young golfers from around Otago and Southland are giving their all for the St Clair Junior Golf Open. Sport Otago Golf Development Manager Michael Smith's happy to see some of the best young players in the region participating, despite the dreary conditions.
We would have probably 15 of the 25 on single figure handicaps, and it's a sort of the cream of our players in Otago, and they're well prepared. They'll have all the wet weather gear, their umbrellas and all that sort of thing, so they're prepared for this. So you have to be growing up in Otago.
Greater opportunities for young players arise through their participation in this tournament. They can earn a place on the national team travelling to Cambridge later in the year. And Smith says these small events also allow golfers to gather points and rise in rank.
This is also part of what we call the Greg Turner Tour. So from this they get points, and the top 12 boys and top 4 girls get a trip away at the end of the year to play at Millbrook and the Hills. And it's a weekend away, all paid for. So they spend a bit of money playing in a lot of these events, so we try and reward them at the end.
He says Otago's got a strong track record for producing talented amateur and professional golfers. And while he'd love to see more girls getting involved, he says overall participation in the sport is good.
The kids that get into it really get into it in depth, so they spend a lot of time practicing. It's a sport that takes up a lot of time, so they spend a lot of time practicing, and they're good. But it's not a huge sport, but we do have, I think we have close to 700 members throughout Otago, so it's not small either.
While these guys are happy playing rain or shine, a scheduled 9-hole competition for under 10s has been canned. But they'll get another chance to hit the green tomorrow, weather dependent. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
A record turnout and heated matches have Otago table tennis celebrating this year's regional competition. It's been bolstered by visiting players from Shanghai, and it's left the future of local table tennis looking bright.
With an intense back and forth, table tennis players rally at the weekend's Otago Open. Organisers are celebrating the contest's highest ever turnout, with more than 140 players from across New Zealand and China participating.
It's been a huge success, so I think everyone's had a great time. The standard of play is very high, and there's been a few upsets along the way, so it's made for an interesting tournament so far.
The 8 visiting Chinese players all hail from Shanghai, Dunedin's sister city. It's the first time the international players have taken part in the Otago competition, and they've been treated to cultural performances during the tournament. Duffy says everything's come together nicely to make an unforgettable Open.
And it's just been really good to get the whole association in behind it. So I think it's going to have huge benefits for the sport here in Dunedin. And I'd like to think we could do it all again and probably a little bit better next year.
With sibling rivalry between Dunedin and Shanghai flaring up, Duffy says audiences have been treated to some spectacular matches. A Shanghai player won the coveted Men's Open title, but Kiwis gave the visitors a run for their money, and some victorious players are keen to share their keys to success.
Just enjoying the game first, learning your skills, keeping on the table, and then developing your game. And we have a lot of coaching here. We've just had 3.5 days of coaching, about 80 juniors from all around New Zealand.
Discussions about locals playing in China are already underway, and other Shanghai players are keen to travel south, a boost Duffy calls the city's victory. David DeLorean, 39, Dunedin News.
The city's heritage has come to the fore at a popular castle ball. It saw residents dress in their finery for an evening of live music, dance and haggis.
Dressed to the nines in a castle no less. Partygoers from near and far celebrate a chilly night by dancing at the annual Darknet Castle Winter Ball. It's in its 31st year, and event manager Michelle Simpson says it tends to bring out the same enthusiastic bunch each year.
We have a nucleus of people who love to come. Some years they might come every second or third year, or some people come every year, and then we always have a real mixture of young and old and everybody in between who just think, hey, this looks interesting, let's hire a Victorian frock and come to Darknet Castle.
She says anyone's welcome to attend and join the core group of familiar revellers, and the range of scheduled activities are designed to encourage all participants to mingle.
You know, everybody arrives, nobody knows each other, but by the end of the night, because of the style of dancing that you do, everybody's got to meet everybody.
In recent years, Darknet Castle's partnered with the Cadbury Carnival, a way to celebrate and develop Dunedin's midwinter experience. But Simpson says the Winter Ball itself hasn't changed much, with its traditional nature the very thing that makes it special and unique.
We don't mess too much with the formula, it is what it is. People come, they have a really unique experience, and we need to protect that to make sure that it is something different that you just can't do anywhere else, because we need a castle to do it.
The fun night out's also about celebrating the city's Scottish heritage, complete with a taste of haggis, and money raised from the events going to the Otago Peninsula Biodiversity Group, allowing attendees to feel good about a little midwinter indulgence. Ruby McAndrew, 39, Dunedin News.
And finally, one of the city's most iconic and unique events has again generated tens of thousands of dollars for charity. The annual Jaffa race sent colourful candies hurtling down Baldwin Street, and it made certain spectators especially joyful.
It's only possible in Dunedin. 25,000 chocolate balls roll down the world's steepest street before an excited crowd of thousands.
I've been amazed with today. I've heard a lot about the event over a number of years that I've worked with the business, and just being here today for the first time was amazing. We think there's been nearly 15,000 people come out to watch these Jaffas roll down the hill.
3 of the chocolate races have been held, featuring a total of 75,000 sweets made locally for this year's festivities. But it's not all about candy. The Chocolate Carnival raises money for more than a dozen charities, with a few targeted at the day's races.
Today's all about 3 particular charities. Parent Centre New Zealand, and they today had a special special pig Jaffa racing down the hill. We also had Surf Lifesaving New Zealand with the yellow Jaffa, and the regular Jaffa was for Make-A-Wish Foundation.
The efforts are bolstered by massive volunteer support for the charity race. It's all combining into a delicious day that's leaving locals full of joy.
And I think the favourite part was just seeing the crowd build up. It was a slow burn. They came in slowly, and by the end of it, 15,000 people, I think. Just a spectacular sight, and those colours coming down the street. You can't ask for more.
A year of hard work has gone into preparing this event. But it's charities that benefit the most from this sweet end to a week of chocolatey celebrations in the city. David DeLorean, 39 Dunedin News.
And that's all for this edition of Southern Newsweek. Please do visit our website dunedintv.co.nz, where you can download Southern Newsweek and watch individual clips of 39 Dunedin News or webcast the show. I'm Holly Buchanan. Thanks for watching.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.